Welcome. If you're new here, my name is Debbie Wombold. I am a Nova Scotian who has a business called Mini Soaps, and this is a sort of a vlog, sort of a chat and do type video. I just wanted to show you guys what I'm up to. If you're new here, like I say, welcome. If you like what you see at the end of the video, please like and share and subscribe. Today I am processing some feral apples. So my business is called Mini Soaps, but I also have teas by Mini. And so my teas are made from various things that I either grow or forage for here in rural Nova Scotia, on the south shore of Nova Scotia. They're sold exclusively at Five Girls Baking, which is located on Main Street in Liverpool. So what I'm doing today is processing some what I like to call feral apples. So these are apples that come from an apple tree that grew on its own, and it's a very old apple tree that grows on a property owned by my husband's family. And so we stumbled upon these beautiful feral small little red apples a couple of years ago, when we actually decided to take a look at them and to taste them and see what they were like. And so when we did, we discovered that they were very flavorful and very tasty. And so what I like to use them for is for in a tea. So I make a tea with them, and I make a couple of teas with them actually. One is apple and mint. So I grow apple mint in my garden, and then I add these apples to it, and it makes a delicious tea. I also make cranberry apple and cinnamon tea with them, and those cranberries I harvest from the shores of Lake Rossignol. Lake Rossignol is the largest man-made lake in Nova Scotia, which is located partly in Queens County and partly in Shelburne County. So we take a trip there and we harvest wild cranberries from the shores of that lake, and I dry them in a similar way as I do to these apples. So I wanted to show you guys a bit of the process and talk to you a little bit about how I process these apples and what I do with them, and just some interesting things about my process. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I'm just gonna tilt the camera down here so you don't have to look at my face, but you can see what I'm doing. So right now I have two bowls here. One is for apples that I'm gonna use, and one is for apples that we're gonna feed to our pigs. So I don't like to waste. A lot of animals, wild animals, come and eat these apples as well. So you know, I take a few for me and I leave some for them, and some are for our pigs that we are raising. So I'm just inspecting these little apples. Some of them have holes in them, which mean they have worms. So I don't want to keep those apples. This one has some bruises, but it's okay. As you can see, they're kind of scabby and scaly. So I'm gonna cut all of that off eventually too. So some of you might know, but some of you don't. Everything in nature, including yourself, has yeast, wild, naturally occurring yeast on it, and so that's why you have to wash these off. So you have to wash off things that you grow and things that you consume. And sometimes that yeast is beneficial to a process, but when you're drying fruit especially, you want to make sure that you wash it. So in this sink I have a little bit of white vinegar, and that takes that yeast off and cleans off any residue. Now these apples, of course, are spray free and chemical free, so we don't put any like insecticide on them. We don't spray them with anything. You know, the only thing, like I say, I have to worry about is the naturally occurring yeast that's on them, and some bug activity. So what I do is I'm just inspecting them, and I'm feeling them with my fingers all over just to feel if they're soft. And you can, you know, you can tell relatively quickly if they're soft because they're rotten, or if they're soft just because they might have a couple of bruises, which I can cut around in the next step of the process. So this is the first step, is just washing them and inspecting them and separating out what I want to keep and what I don't want to keep. So these are not ones that were found on the ground. These are ones that we picked off the tree. So if you follow me on social media like Instagram and Facebook, you would have seen my husband climb up the tree to get these. And the tree is quite a wild tree. It's very heavy with branches, thick branches, and it's not a very tall tree. It's but it's pretty wild. So he's a really great guy and very supportive of my business. And he climbed up there, and he took my basket with him and gathered the ones that are higher up, because a lot of the ones down on the lower branches were already gone. The deer are frequent visitors to this tree, and so are the porcupines and the raccoons and birds. As you can see, these are just the right size for a small animal. Our pigs really like them. We've already taken up some to feed to our pigs, and they really, really like them. Yeah, the tree is very, very wild looking. It has a lot of branches, and it's very difficult to get in there and get to the apples. So my husband helped me out with that yesterday. So another thing is that I have to process these relatively quickly, because of course you can't leave them sit. They will go bad. I don't have a cold place to store them. So I don't know what variety these apples are, and they may not have a known variety, because they're apples that were likely, this tree was likely grown from a seed that was planted by one of George Womble, who originally owned that piece of property. He had livestock there. He had pigs, and he had cattle and that type of thing. So that tree was likely planted by one of those animals, and so that's why these are growing there. I like to use these what I call feral apples in my tea. They're really packed with a lot of flavor for such a little apple, and they're very sweet. My youngest son Lennon ate quite a few yesterday as we were picking them. It's nice to know that you can pick something and it doesn't have a spray on it, and it doesn't have, you know, chemicals on it that you need to worry about. I try to make use of things that I find in nature for my products, or locally. And apple tea is something that's really soothing and really really tasty and comforting, especially in the cooler months. And so that's one of the things that I really enjoy from this tea. And when you dry it, and I'll talk a little bit more about the drying process when we get to that part, but when you dry it, it really takes on a whole another flavor. Okay, so I skipped videotaping or videoing a process, but I'll just tell you a little bit what I did. It's kind of monotonous. So all of these are now all chopped, cut into. So I take the apple, I cut into it, I cut off any of the bits that don't look really good or things that, you know, I don't think are good quality. I cut them open to check them for bugs inside or evidence of bugs. And then the next thing I'm gonna do is put them through this with the grater and make them really fine pieces. And then after that, they'll go into my dehydrator on a low setting for dehydration. And so it has to be a very low heat setting to preserve the sugars. You don't want to burn the sugars in the apple, but you also want it to be a high enough setting so that there isn't a mold, and you have to dry them extremely well so that there isn't a chance of mold or bacterial growth after they're processed and made into tea. So that's the next step, is to run them through this. Then it's going to be the dehydrator, and then they're ready to be added into my teas. So yeah, I will spare you the noise of putting them through this. I mean, you can imagine just what it's like. You just put them in, chop them up, then they go into a bowl, and I spread them light onto my dehydrator panels, and they go into the dehydrator, and that's where they stay until they're dehydrated. So that's the apple part of the tea making process. It's a little bit of time and a little bit of effort, but it's well worth it if you've ever tasted my teas, and I hope that someday you do. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe and share my videos. That helps me grow my business and helps to grow my YouTube channel. I hope to take you on some more of my foraging adventures coming up in the future. We'll be going to go harvest some cranberries, so I'm hoping to take you with me up to the shores of Lake Rossignol. It's really beautiful this time of year. So I hope you guys stay tuned for that, and I'll see you later.